The name of the police department involved would be Las Vegas Metro Search and Rescue. And basically what happened was this July the 4th, this past July the 4th, 2010, I decided on the morning of July the 4th that I was going to go fossil hunting. I wish I owned a GPS because I would be able to give you literal and exact locations, but I don't own a GPS. I'm on Social Security disability. I decided I would take a 4-mile one-way or 8-mile two-way hike, 8 miles round trip, easy hike. And it's all on land that you can literally see from the end of a road that ends in a neighborhood, a residential area. The road is North Durango. I walked out to this very small mountain range, the Sheep Mountains, at the very beginning of the Sheep Mountain Range, right next to Las Vegas, to go fossil hunting. It took me approximately an hour and a half to reach my destination of very, very fast-paced walking. And I basically went from an altitude of about 2,000 feet to an altitude of 3,100 feet. It's very slight incline. And again, because of my physical conditioning and my stamina level, I've reached there with no problems. I got to my destination, started finding some mineral specimens, and one good fossil specimen. I had a black, small day backpack on. I had 2 bottles of water, 2 liters of water with me, a bag of trail mix, and a bag of beef jerky. In my pack, I had a stainless steel spoon, knife, and fork set, a wine bottle opener, and my pocket knife, all steel that's very reflective. And I'll get to why I'm mentioning these things. I also had different pieces of identification in my backpack that included non-resident fishing licenses from both Utah and Nevada. So I had all sorts of identification, and I had small tools that you could use on the trail. I also had several big lighters with me. I always carry several big lighters. And believe it or not, a fire stick, which is basically magnesium and several other types of metal, and you just shave pieces of that off and you strike it with a little spark igniter, and it makes a magnesium fire for you to start a fire. And I'm sure you've probably seen stuff like this on television. Mm-hmm. So I have all of these little bitty things with me in my small day backpack. I get to my location, I find some fossil and mineral specimens, put them in my backpack. I continue on. I did not have my camera with me on that particular day. I continued on looking at spoor or scat, or what you and I would call poop, animal poop, coyote poop, bobcat poop, and mountain lion poop. It was the amount of this poop that I was finding that kept me intrigued and kept me on the trail, wishing every step of the way that I had my camera with me. When I finally encountered a pile of mountain lion poop that was probably only 5 or 6 hours old, and it was big enough to scare me, I said, okay, there's caves right there. I mean, I've been looking at caves the whole way, and they're at an altitude above me. I hadn't climbed that high, but those are where coyotes and mountain lions and bobcats would take refuge in the heat of the day. So seeing that big pile of poop scared me, and I said, okay, it's time to turn around. I looked at my watch in awe that I've been out there for so long, and also with a worried tone, thinking, wow, I've really been out here too long. I guess I'll turn around and go home. I started my walk back, and my feet started cramping. I continued walking. until my legs started cramping. That was the moment that I knew it wasn't my new hiking shoes that were the problem. I called 311, and then I called a friend of mine and told them exactly where I was. I told them verbatim, this is the police station 311, who switched me over to 911, and I repeated my story to them. I repeated the exact same story to my best friend's son, and then called 911 yet again to let them know that, yes, I did at first think that it was not a medical emergency, but now I do think that it is a medical emergency. And then my phone battery went dead. At that point, I continued on for possibly another 25 yards, walking with both legs starting to cramp, reaching all the way to my groin. At that point, I was immobilized, could no longer walk. But because I knew what the possibilities were, I remained standing. I did not sit down, because if I had started cramping fully and the cramps reached up to my abdomen and thorax, I could have possibly gone into cardiac arrest. So I stayed standing up with my rear end pointed at the sun and bent over so that my neck, shoulders, face, and entire back were basically shadowed by my legs. I stood there for several hours. They finally got a helicopter in the sky. Now, I had told my best friend's son to come and meet me at the end of Durango, that I was 2 miles off of the end of the street. He arrived after the emergency vehicles arrived, and I watched from that position. I watched everybody arrive. I watched it all. I used my spoon, knife, and fork set, my pocket knife.
Sir, I got to stop you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have time to hear a complaint. All this other stuff is not relevant to me. Did the police do something to you, yes or no?
I'm sorry, say that one more time, please.
I said, did the police do something to you? You're telling me a very long story, and I'm happy to listen to it, but we haven't heard anything so far that pertains to a police misconduct incident.
Right. Everything that I have does tie into this. Okay, then I'll just skip all of that. We'll just skip my experience, and I'll go to what the police did. Would that be better?
Yes, that would help me so I can tell you what your options are.
Okay, so I had my friend's son at the scene. I had another best friend who I camp, hike, fish, and hunt with. And I had yet another friend who I camp, hike, hunt, and fish with. And my son who I camp, hike, hunt, and fish with. They all knew where I was because of the first young man. 911 and 311 knew where I was because of the phone call that I'd given them. Okay, so I called 2 different sources, one a friend and one an official police agency, and told them exactly where I was. So when the police started questioning the people that were there, the witnesses of mine, they basically asked, is he depressed? Is he on hallucinogens? Is he on meth? Does he have a problem with the law? Is this a hoax? So they asked all these questions. They were there. My son kind of like lost it, hysteria, frantic, whatever you want to call it. And the cops basically kind of like bullied him around. Now, they were all trying to tell him he's right out there, and they would point in the direction of actually where I in reality was.
Sir, you do not have... Sir, I got to stop you. You don't have a complaint. And I have to go. I have to go. I can't entertain this any further. You have a good evening.
Okay, that's because you don't want to hear the full